what is something that regular Ontarians who might not have access to funds or the media, what's something that just regular everyday Ontarians can do to help end this legal discrimination?
Well, it depends how active you want to get. But this topic gets raised a lot in just like, private conversation. So I would say get informed. When somebody asks a question and maybe assumes certain things are the case that aren't true. Like, for example, that Catholics pay for Catholic schools and non-Catholics don't
Yeah,
contribute.
that's a big one. Everybody thinks that.
The property tax form, that makes a difference. Like, just know that that's not true. Be familiar with all of the myths and misconceptions so that when it comes up, you can clarify those issues. So that's a pretty passive thing. Just be informed. But actively, there are I almost said riots. There aren't any of those. There are rallies. There are protests from time to time when the issue is in some way indirectly a part of a debate at Queen's Park, as it was with the GSAs, Bill 13. Join a group that makes a presentation in front of the government and tie the human rights issue to Catholic school funding. Everybody was talking about why it was wrong for Catholic schools to prohibit GSAs. Our group was really only one of a couple that said, but this is an endemic problem that will continue so long as you have a public Catholic system.
Absolutely.
So being a part of a group that champions this issue, if you want to get more active, there are several of them out there. You don't have to be an atheist, you don't have to be a humanist. There are actually groups within every religious tradition that has set up a political group to take on the issue of fairness in Ontario's educational system.
Very good.
I was wondering if you're privy on what the outcome was of Riva Landau's most recent case.
Yeah.
Is it pending?
I think it's still pending.
Decision?
I think it's still pending.
And is there any type of feedback you can give us? Or is it just sort of like tight-lipped?
I really don't know. I asked her. Actually tried.
We saw the interview, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. I think I asked her how likely is it, and she's like,
I know she
it could go either way. Because remember that there's so much inconsistency in how the courts rule on anything related to Catholic schools. That was the
religion.
point I tried to get
Religion
across.
in general too, right?
Or religion within secular society,
Exactly.
where religion and government sort of confront each other. But on Catholic schools in particular, the church thinks that they have a right over any aspect of the curriculum that touches on denominational privilege or an aspect of religious dogma. But you hear from McGuinty and other government cabinet members that in fact, no, they get to call the shots. So I guess the courts will arbitrate on that, but they can go either way.
Okay. You might not be privy to this, but as a curiosity, how many teachers would you say are in favor of one school system? Would you say you have an uphill battle ahead of you, or is the momentum in your corner?
Well, the secular public school teachers, the Teachers Federation has passed one school system motions a few times. So I don't know if they've pulled. I guess they probably internally must have pulled their own teachers, but I'm not privy to that. But yeah, the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation, the OSSTF, has endorsed this on a few occasions. And that would make
sense because that's eliminating a discrimination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, because they represent teachers, and teachers getting jobs. So they more than anybody understand the problem. And individual school boards, I can point you to my website, to the One School System website. There's 7 or 8 individual school boards, secular public school boards, that have also endorsed that position.
Okay.
But as I mentioned in my talk, even Catholics, in large part, understand if they won't actively support this position. Catholics, like everybody, understands discrimination. This is such an obvious case.
Yeah.
So the other thing was with GSAs and other issues of human rights, where it confronts denominational so-called rights. It's often not the teachers that have the problem with, say, a gay-straight alliance, because they work with students. They know that a gay-straight alliance is a positive contribution. And teachers went on record stating that they supported GSAs, but teachers don't call the shots. That's the problem. The principal who answers to the trustees and the Institute for Catholic Education, dominated by the Ontario Assembly of Catholic Bishops, they call the shots on that particular issue.
That leaves me. Who hires the trustees? Does the public have an influence on who the
Parents vote for trustees.
Parents.
It's a democratically elected position. Same thing with both systems. And if you are, this is where the designation of Catholic or public school supporter on the tax forms is important. that if you designate yourself as a Catholic school supporter, you vote for a Catholic trustee.
Okay,
And if you
right.
designate yourself as a public school supporter, you don't vote for them. You vote for the public school trustee.
Right.
All trustees on the Ontario Catholic School Association, Teacher Association, are emailable through the OCSTA's website, by the way, I should mention. So moving on here, are there any other cases that you know of pending right now in the same kind of area?
So Riva Landos is, of course, the big one. But my understanding is some of the groups that we work with, CFI works with, they're pursuing another UN challenge, another United Nations challenge. I don't know the details, but I can put you in touch with them. Beyond those two, I hear all the time people contact me just a couple of weeks ago, you won't telling me, you guys are interested in secularism, you won't believe what's going on, my son isn't allowed into Catholic schools. And I'm like, yeah, I know, it's ridiculous, isn't it? But unfortunately, your case has been tried, and legally, there's nothing new that you can present.
This brings me another question. The angle of the non-believer, which in my studies and looking at Adler versus Ontario and looking at the Big M drug mart case and abolishing the Lord's Day, although I've seen acknowledgement of the freedom of conscience and the freedom of religion, acknowledging rather non-belief in addition to freedom of religion, I haven't seen very much of the atheistic or the agnostic wedge being driven in, and this to me seems like it's the key to victory. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think these are all good approaches, and they should all be done. By the way, the UN case was brought by a father who was Jewish, and he was upset because he had to both pay taxes that supported public system, and he was sending his son to Jewish school.
Adler or Walden?
Walderman.
Yeah, that's it.
But sorry.
In which way this should be framed. And I tend to think that it is an affront to all non-Catholics, and even Catholics understand that. So I'm not sure on this issue we need to divide ourselves between non-believers and non-Catholic believers, believers who are non-Catholic. I actually think we can make a larger pool by bringing everybody together. And there's a lot of people who, as soon as you hear that you're advocating this position, and you're an atheist, they assume you're advocating this position simply because you're an atheist, and only an atheist would advocate this position. It's untrue, and we just give them unfair leverage against what I think is the just position by making it more about atheism than more about the fairness and the discrimination. Yeah. And
I know I've read recently that you, if I might be even correct, that you are now no longer with the Centre for Inquiry. You're moving on to greener pastures. Could you just tell us a word about the CFI for those who are not familiar with the Centre for Inquiry?
Yeah. So I have signaled that I am phasing out my active involvement. I will be no longer a full-time staff person in a month and a half or so. I'll still be involved, so to anybody who's worried, don't be. But CFI, it's a great organization, and I've been involved in it since it started in Canada, so I know it fairly intimately. But its mandate is very broad, so we're interested in reason, science, secularism, and freedom of inquiry. And in two very distinct sort of subcategories within that large mandate. One, we're interested in questions of religion and ethics, and we promote secular humanism. The other one, we're interested in pseudoscience. We're interested in alternative medicine, in things like cryptozoology. It's actually itself quite broad, but generally it's to promote a skeptical, critical, and scientific response to some of what passes for science, but isn't quite on the rigorous level.
Thank you. And moving on to one of the other taboos from religion being politics, do you know of any political parties who possess the gumption, rather, to take on such an issue?
Catholic school funding?
Yeah.
Well, the Greens have. The Green Party of Ontario does have and has for a couple of election campaigns now a one-school system policy. Okay. It's a very robust policy. I ran with them, full disclosure, in 2011, and one thing I did was actually help them to make the policy more robust, to firm it up, and to train MPPs to not shy away from it, but to have the arguments to promote the just solution to our current problems. So the Green Party, but they're the only ones. I've met with members of all the parties, and there are MPPs within every party that support this. Lots of them support this, but it's just that they feel that they will lose an entire voting bloc, the Catholics, if they endorse it. So even though they agree, majorities support one school system, they don't think the majority is a bloc on this issue. They think the Catholic vote is. But they're wrong. I think even Catholics could get behind this if it was framed in the right way.
And that sort of boosts what you just said about not dividing into atheists.
Absolutely.
Then you can get one bloc that has more power.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very
you.
much.